Alright, so in this last part of the video, we'll continue to take a look at how you can use this friction bump model to predict the direction of the friction force on objects. And so what I'd like to do is get the wheel out of there, and I want to imagine instead of pushing the book with the hand, let's imagine actually dragging the book, not with the hand, but with the table itself. Or maybe this is a second book. Maybe there's a big book here and a smaller book on top. Now, if we grab this book, if we grab this lower book and pull gently, not too fast, but pull gently, then we can get the upper book to accelerate too. Okay? And in this case, friction is actually acting in the direction of motion, this way, to accelerate that upper book. It may be the guy's hand that's accelerating this lower book, but the upper book is being accelerated by friction. Let's take a look at that with the friction bump model pieces right here. So this is the book, the little book on top, and this is the big book on the bottom. So if we put this guy down like this, now there's no friction acting. But if we grab a hold of the bottom book and we pull that forward like this, eventually, happens back there first, eventually you get friction bump interaction. And so, in that case, the friction bumps from the lower book push that way on the upper book. And in that case, the friction bumps actually accelerate the upper book forward from rest. Okay, so all of that once again shows that friction in this case actually goes in the direction of the motion of this upper book. Okay, pull the lower book, the upper book comes with it as friction pushes there. All right, we're going to go on to the next part here. So, what do you suppose are some factors that might influence the friction force on an object? Why don't you pause the video here to write down your own ideas. Here are some factors that I came up with. Are these some of the same ones that you came up with? The speed of sliding, the roughness of the surface, the weight of the object, the normal force on the object. So, without any evidence, but just as a matter of fact, the speed of sliding doesn't significantly influence the friction force. But the roughness of the surface seems natural for it to, and so does the weight. And we'll do a lab where we'll actually investigate those things, and so does the normal force. In fact, we're going to see the weight of the object is really the normal force on the object. Of course, they're two different things, but in terms of investigating what affects the friction force, we're going to want to focus on looking at how the normal force does. So let's take a look at why the normal force is a better thing to look at than the weight in terms of how it affects the friction force. So here's a book on the tabletop again. Now, if we do a free body diagram on the book, so we have the normal force upward, and we have the weight downward, and if this is not accelerating, then those two are equal. Now, the weight kind of crushes this book down in and puts those friction bumps really close together and causes there to be a lot of friction. Now, what happens if we take our tabletop, however, and we turn it on its side? And we do the same thing with the book. Okay, then, in this case, the weight vector actually acts down and doesn't press the book into the friction bumps of the table at all. On the other hand, if we had somebody's hand pushing the book up against the tabletop, then the normal force would then act this way, and the harder the person pushes the book, the greater the normal force will push back this way. The book isn't accelerating, so whatever pushed this way has to be bounced by this way. And so for that reason, we're going to look at the normal force as the main factor that influences the friction.